He slammed the conference room door so hard the dry erase board fell off the wall. I didn't flinch. I just kept looking at the spreadsheet I'd printed, 3 copies, color-coded, margins tight like my jaw. His face was red, not drunk red, not sunburn red, budget panic red. He held the invoice in his hand like it was radioactive. You want to tell me what the hell this is? I glanced up, deadpan. Looks like a licensing invoice. He already knew that. Logo on the letterhead was clean and corporate, the address out of state. But what he didn't know, what was eating him from the inside like termites on a rotting porch, was who the hell owned the license. He was too proud to ask, too scared to guess. Let me rewind 6 months. The day he said, "Be grateful you even have a job," I was on hour 62 that week. The shop floor was hotter than Satan's armpit, and the tool I'd invented, not optimized like they like to say in PowerPoints, had just saved us from another failed QA inspection. I remember him standing in front of that fan, arms crossed like a high school linebacker, whose glory days were 2 divorces and a DUI ago. He said it without blinking, like he was doing me a favor by letting me build multi-million-dollar fixes for the same salary I made 3 years ago when I was still begging for overtime. So I nodded. Quiet. But my rage grew legs that night, and those legs walked straight to my garage. My garage was full of secrets. Old motorcycle parts, a half-finished bar stool I started when my marriage was still warm, and the prototype of that tool. I'd called it razor frame internally, don't ask me why. Maybe because it sliced setup times like butter and held tolerance so tight it scared our QA guy into early retirement. What they didn't know, final version didn't have to be company property. See, during the original build, I used personal tools. My home laptop, my off-the-clock hours, and most important, HR never got me to sign the IP waiver. Their systems crashed during onboarding, and Becky told me, "We'll do it later." Later never came. And while they were busy slapping company logos on trade show slides, I was emailing a patent lawyer in Arizona who works for cheap and fast if you send whiskey with the retainer. Muffin, LLC got born in April. Patent filed in May. Licensing structure finalized in June. All quiet, all legal, all mine. Then I waited. Let them get addicted to the tool. Let it become essential. I even sent in a bug fix update through the anonymous dev team email I'd created just to play them. Meanwhile, I set the trap. The company tried to scale razor frame to the Mexico plant. They triggered the royalty clause I'd buried halfway down the license text. Minimum 5-figure monthly due per location past the original. And now here we were. Him holding the invoice like it was laced with anthrax. Me sipping day-old black coffee like it's fine wine. He sat down, didn't yell this time. He whispered, "Do you know who's doing this?" Let silence breathe between us like a third person in the room. He stared at me, eyes narrowing, then darted to the specs on the invoice. Small print, legalese, then he saw it. Inventor, JT. Merrick, his lips moved but no sound came. Like his ego got hit with a tire iron. I smiled. Just a little, just enough. He didn't say anything for a full 30 seconds. Just sat there, blinking like someone unplugged his brain. His hand hovered near the invoice like it might bite him again. I watched the gears try to turn, but he couldn't wrap his MBA brain around one simple, rust-covered fact. The guy he humiliated in front of a dozen execs. The guy he denied a raise while buying himself a new Harley. The guy he called replaceable in the middle of staff lunch, owned him now. And I didn't need to shout. The silence screamed for me. He cleared his throat like it owed him money. "Eric, you filed a what?" His voice cracked halfway through. "You licensed the razor frame system? You're the inventor?" I stared at the framed photo behind him and the CEO holding up a fake gold plaque that read Innovation Excellence 2022. I remember when they gave it to him. He read the speech I wrote. They didn't even invite me to the awards dinner. So yeah, I nodded. Yup. Why the hell wouldn't you tell us? You work here. That's our tool. I shrugged. Funny, y'all made it very clear I was just a cog. I figured you wouldn't care who made the wrench. He stood so fast his chair cracked against the back wall. You sandbagged the company. Wrong, I saved it. Then I charged market rate. You just never read the fine print. He stormed out. I heard his dress shoes screech on the linoleum all the way down the hall like a rat trapped in a vent. 10 minutes later, the CEO was standing over my desk, his time with legal in tow. She had that fake-friendly grimace corporate lawyers wear when they're trying to act like you didn't just screw their quarterly forecast with a ballpoint pen and a $2 notary stamp. "We'd like to discuss a possible acquisition of the razor frame license," she said, voice calm, calculated, but her left eyelid kept twitching. "Panic lives in the details." "Sure," I said. "You can submit an offer through Muffin, LLC." The CEO blinked. Muffin. Muffin was my dog. She died before anyone at this company learned my first name. Figured I owed her more loyalty. The lawyer looked like she just bit into a lemon. The CEO sat down without asking, folded his hands, and said, "We're willing to be generous if you'll transfer full ownership." I leaned back, let him sweat for a few seconds, then pulled out the manila folder I'd been keeping under my desk for this exact moment. I slid it across like a blackjack dealer on a heater. Inside, not a counteroffer, not even a number, just a picture of Director Be Grateful at a bar, sloppy drunk, telling the bartender that he invented the tool that saved the company, while I stood in the background, time-stamped, dated, already notarized. The caption, just 4 words written in Sharpie, delusional, not the inventor. The CEO stared at it. The lawyer turned pale. "I'll consider selling," I said slowly. "After he's gone. Fired. Name stripped from all materials. And I want his office. Paint it if you have to, but I want it." Nobody said a word. Just the soft tap of the lawyer's pen starring a brand new page of hell. They didn't fire him that day. No, that would have been merciful. Instead, they started treating him like a tumor they weren't allowed to remove yet. Just isolate, starve, and quietly schedule for surgical extraction. First, stripped his access to internal systems. Temporary audit, they told him. Then his calendar dried up. No meetings, no invites, no more pretending to be the wizard behind the curtain, just a sad man behind a desk with a locked laptop and a cold cup of status. I know this because they moved him 2 floors down, next to the janitor's supply closet. No nameplate, no window, a desk. That's it. Walked past his new office the next morning with a donut in one hand and a bounce in my step I hadn't felt since 2017. He was staring at an unplugged monitor like it owed him an apology. "Morning," I said, licking powdered sugar off my thumb. "Find a new job yet?" His eyes darted up. Red, glossy, but he forced a smirk. "Enjoy it while it lasts." "Oh, I plan to," I said. "Every last billable minute." By the end of the week, corporate signed a 3-year licensing deal with Muffin, LLC, at double the initial rate. You know why? Because I'd signed 2 other companies just like ours. Competitors. One of them in direct talks with our biggest client. Suddenly, Razor Frame wasn't just a tool, it was leverage. And now I had all of it. That's when things got weird. One night, about 11 p.m., I'm in my garage fiddling with a next-gen prototype, Razor Frame Micro, smaller, smarter. No external power needed when I hear footsteps outside. Gravel crunch. Then a knock. It's him, Director Grateful, in a hoodie, looking like he just crawled out of a self-help podcast and a whiskey bottle. "You following me?" I asked. "No," he muttered, eyes sunken. I need to talk. I should have slammed the door. But I let him speak. "Curiosity's a mean drug." "I'm losing everything," he said. "They're not letting me near the board. HR's ghosting me. I've got 2 kids in college, man." I leaned against my workbench. "So what? You want sympathy? An apology for doing my own paperwork?" "I want in," he said. "You're blowing up. You got deals coming. I can help. I know the buyers. I can pitch." "You want a job?" I asked deadpan. "At Muffin LLC?" He nodded. "I'll take whatever, even contract. Just don't leave me out in the cold like this." I walked over, picked up a small stack of papers from my shelf. Old resume? His. I'd printed it weeks ago after watching him bungle a demo pitch on Zoom with his mic muted for 20 minutes. "You ever wonder," I said, flipping the pages, "why I didn't just leave when you denied me that raise?" He blinked. Didn't answer. "Because I wanted this," I said. "Not revenge, reversal. You sit where I sat, you beg, you wait, you stew." I handed him the resume. He took it with shaking fingers. Then I pointed to the bottom. Sticky note, attached in bold red ink, denied. "Be grateful you even got a door to knock on." I shut the garage door and turned off the light. Monday morning, his parking spot was gone. Literally, sign yanked out, curb repainted. I watched him circle the lot 3 times before surrendering to a space 2 blocks down, dragging his briefcase like it was full of bricks and regret. Inside, the rumor mill had teeth. HR was restructuring, which is corporate speak for "we're digging your professional grave," but we haven't finished the tombstone yet. The man who once barked orders across the open office now crept in like a substitute teacher nobody respected. But I didn't gloat, not publicly. I kept my head down, my emails dry, and my meetings full. Razor Frame's licensing put me in every strategy huddle, every product call, every finance update. They even offered me a title, Senior Innovation Liaison. I declined. Told them I preferred Consulting Inventor. Nothing says untouchable like not needing a title to own the room. The CEO stopped by my desk later that week, all smiles and executive backpats. "We've never seen this level of outside interest," he said, gesturing to the growing queue of potential licensees. "You're a genius, Merrick. We're lucky to have you." I smiled politely. I remembered the time that same man couldn't pick me out of a 3-person lineup. And while everyone else celebrated the company's innovation surge, I was busy laying the final brick in the coffin, Razor Frame X. This wasn't just a tool. It was a system, modular, AI integrated, could adapt to different line specs without reprogramming. It could replace 5 existing tools. I demoed it for one client privately. Their COO nearly choked on his cigar. Knew then I wasn't just ahead of the curve, I was the curve. Meanwhile, Director Grateful was unraveling. I caught him one day in the break room staring blankly into a coffee cup, whispering to himself. He looked up, saw me, and for a split second, just a flicker, I thought he might cry. He tried cornering me again. In the hallway this time. You're really not gonna let me in, he asked. Not even on the next version. I tilted my head. Guy who once called my ideas tinker toy crap. You want a seat at my table now? I was under pressure, he snapped. I had quotas. You think this job was easy? You think mine was? I shot back. You think coming in early, staying late, building tools that saved your ass while you took credit and threw scraps was easy? He had nothing. Just a vein twitching in his temple and the stale stench of regret clinging to his blazer. I walked away. Slowly, letting him stew in the silence. That night, my inbox dinged with a subject line I'd been waiting for. Interested in acquisition, $4.3M offer for full Razor frame suite. From our biggest competitor. And the kicker, they wanted a consulting clause, wanted me to head the transition. I poured myself a whiskey, sat back in my chair. I hadn't just built a tool. I'd built my own exit strategy. I was about to walk out, holding the company's beating heart in my hands. I didn't say yes to the offer, not right away. I let it hang in the air like the smell of burnt toast in a house with old wiring, unspoken but undeniable. I forwarded it to our CEO with a short message. You said we're partners now. Let's see how much that partnership's worth. No emojis, no sign-off, let him chew on it. Next morning, walked into the boardroom and saw more white hair than Wall Street. Every exec, every investor with a badge, even a guy flown in from Tokyo who whispered into an earpiece like this was a hostage negotiation. The CEO gave me that tight, everything's fine smile that only shows up when nothing is. We'd love to discuss alternatives to the acquisition. Internal buyout, equity options, long-term collaboration. Translation, please don't hand our future to the competition. I sat down slow, opened my leather folio, and for the first time in a long while, I took my time. Meanwhile, 2 floors down, Director Grateful was sweating through his button-down in a performance review that wasn't really a review. It was an obituary disguised as a PowerPoint. HR was there, not with tissues, but with a termination packet and a box for his desk items. One of the interns later told me he stared at the wall for 20 solid minutes after they let him go. Just stared, like the reality hadn't downloaded yet. He left at 4:42 p.m. with a cardboard box and a haunted look. Nobody clapped. Nobody spoke, except me. I stood near the lobby and watched him walk out. When he passed, I raised my coffee like a toast. Be grateful, I said. You even had a job. He didn't look at me, just kept walking. Slow, like gravity finally noticed he wasn't important anymore. That night, the CEO called me personally. Didn't even go through his assistant. His voice was measured but cracking. We want a counter, he said. Our board approved a buyout package. Razor frame, all IP, perpetual consulting clause. $6.2 million, and a 10% residual for every future product based on your designs. I didn't speak for a moment. That silence owned the line. Then, and my conditions, you'll have full creative control, your name on every patent, your pick of projects, and the corner office is already being repainted. Don't want the office, I said. Give it to someone who hasn't spent 10 years getting stepped on. There was a pause. Then, almost sheepishly, you don't want a title either? Nope. I want the freedom to build. And the power to walk if I smell another Grateful in the hallway. I'll close the next day. By Thursday, Muffin, LLC was dissolved. The funds wired. The patents transferred under my terms, my clauses, my signature. The press release was short and sweet. Razor frame inventor joins leadership in historic internal acquisition. No mention of the guy who once said my ideas belonged in a junk drawer. But tucked into my drawer now, just behind the contract, and my favorite torque wrench, is a folded napkin from a bar 3 towns over. It's stained with whiskey, ink, and desperation. Scrawled across it in a shaky hand, you win, I was wrong. B, I didn't toss it, I keep it as a reminder. That sometimes the best revenge is letting them watch you build everything they swore you never could. 3 weeks after the deal closed, walked back into the same break room where I used to microwave sad meatloaf in silence while Director Grateful yapped about crypto and golf trips I'd never be invited to. Only now, people looked up when I entered. Nods, half smiles, respect or maybe fear dressed in khakis. The Razor Frame expansion was officially underway, Phase Roman 2, company-wide rollout. And guess who the board tapped to lead integration? Not me. I chose someone, young tech named Alyssa from QA. She once stayed late to help me debug an issue on a prototype nobody gave a damn about at the time. I told the board, give her the reins or I walk. They asked no further questions. Meanwhile, I started designing something else. Not a tool, not a device. A firewall. A legal, bulletproof firewall between my work and the company's ability to ever own it again. Everything I touched from here forward lived inside a new clause I had written myself, buried in Section 7 of the consulting contract under creator autonomy and royalty independence. That same week, I heard a rumor. Director Grateful, real name Ben, though nobody used it, was seen downtown. Not at a firm, not at a startup, not even at a networking event. He was driving Uber. I didn't believe it at first. Thought it was office folklore, kind of poetic justice people tell each other to make layoffs feel karmic. Until I ordered a ride to a dinner with one of our European licensing partners. And there he was, Ben, gray hoodie, sweat stains. Eyes hollowed out like foreclosure notices were breeding in his mailbox. He didn't recognize me right away. Just glanced in the rear view and mumbled for Merrick. Yeah, I said. Long time. The silence hit like an earthquake in a church. His fingers clenched the steering wheel so hard I thought it might crack. He didn't speak until the stoplight near 9th turned red. Then, barely a whisper, they were never supposed to pick you. I raised an eyebrow. They didn't. I made sure they had no choice. He stared ahead, jaw flexing. I built my whole life in that company, every step, every late night. And they flushed me the second you waved your little invention around. I leaned forward slightly, built a throne of credit for work you didn't do. You think I waved it? No, Ben, I earned it, quietly, alone, while you were too busy practicing your victory speech in the mirror. He looked like he might pull the car over and sob, but he didn't. He just drove, hands trembling, radio off. As we pulled up to the restaurant, I opened the door and paused. This isn't about revenge anymore, I said. It's about gravity. You climbed a ladder built on other people's backs. Eventually, gravity catches up. I handed him a $100 bill, not for the ride. For the reminder, he didn't thank me. Just stared at the dashboard like it might tell him where he went wrong. I stepped out, adjusted my jacket, and walked into a restaurant where people knew my name, where I was the keynote, not the guy bringing coffee. And I realized something in that moment, crystal clear. The real power wasn't in the invention. It was in owning your own story, making damn sure the wrong people never get to write the ending. 2 days later, Ben sent me an email. No subject line. Just a blank message with one attachment. A PDF titled Proposal Freelance Pitch Ben Carter PDF. I opened it. 3 pages long, poorly formatted. He was offering to consult on Razor Frame's next iteration. Said he had ideas to improve workflow compatibility. Even referenced buzzwords he used to mock me for. Agile transformation, data synergy. I didn't reply. An hour later, he followed up. 1 sentence, you win, but can you at least not erase me? That's when I knew it wasn't about money, it was about memory. The fear of fading into nothing. See, guys like Ben, they don't fear losing. They fear being forgotten, being scrubbed from the company timeline like they never mattered. And the truth, he was already gone from the website. His director of innovation plaque got tossed in a storage room we later turned into a yoga closet. But me, my name was printed in contracts, trade mags, white papers. Hell, we were prepping a keynote where I'd be introduced onstage by the CEO. I forwarded his email to legal with a note, decline professionally. No further engagement, because I wasn't going to throw him a lifeline so he could claw his way back into something he never respected. Didn't want redemption. He wanted relevance. Meanwhile, Razor Frame X went beta. 3 companies signed early adoption contracts totaling 7 figures. Alyssa led integration like she was born for it. I made sure her bonuses got doubled and her name went on the internal patent filings. No one questioned it, because now, when I said something, people listened. But things got stranger the closer we got to the Industry Expo. We're showcasing the full Razor Frame suite, X included, on the main floor, front, and center. 3 days before the event, I got a cryptic call from a competitor in Texas. Thought you should know, the guy said. Someone approached us claiming they co-invented Razor Frame, tried to sell us a corrected version. I didn't have to ask who. Ben had reached that stage of desperation. Selling lies in parking lots and inboxes. The man was trying to rewrite history. I'd been a sidekick in my own origin story. I thanked the caller, hung up, then made one phone call of my own. By the end of the day, our legal team had drafted a cease and desist so brutal it could make a priest cry. It included timelines, chat logs, access records, signed affidavits. It was more than legal muscle. It was a weaponized biography, proof that every inch of razor frame, from sketch to silicon, bore my fingerprints. And in the last paragraph, offered Ben one final term, public retraction, or full litigation. He folded within the hour, signed the retraction, sent it back with no comments, but what gutted me wasn't his surrender. It was the one line he scribbled under his signature. I thought if I said it enough, maybe it would be true. I sat there for a while, just stared at those words, not out of pity, not out of anger, but because I finally understood the thing that haunted him. It wasn't that I beat him, it was that I never needed him in the first place. The morning of the expo, I stood on the main floor under lights brighter than truth. Razor Frame X gleamed behind me like a war trophy, sleek, streamlined, a machine that didn't just optimize production. It rewrote it. There were maybe 200 people in the audience, another 1,000 watching online, and about 6 executives pacing backstage trying to act like their ties weren't choking them. CEO introduced me with a rehearsed grin and a list of accolades that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Our keynote today comes from the mind behind Razor Frame, the mind that built our future. Applause, a few whistles. I stepped up to the mic, calm as a man who'd already lived his ending and decided to stay for the encore. Funny thing about innovation, I began. Everyone loves it once it works. No one wants to sit next to it while it's still bleeding and ugly. Laughter, some nods. One woman in the second row whispered, "Damn right." I told the story not of Ben, not directly, but of how some ideas are born out of necessity and others out of neglect. I showed graphs, prototypes, failure logs, real talk. The kind of presentation that doesn't just pitch a product, it confesses it. And at the end, when I clicked to the final slide, it wasn't a logo. It was Muffin? Yeah, my dog. Sitting in my garage next to the first cardboard prototype of Razor Frame, tongue out, tail wagging, and a line beneath it that read, "Built for the ones who believe in you when no one else does." The room went still, then erupted. After the crowd filtered out, execs swarmed me, offering drinks, interviews, handshake deals thick with promises. But I excused myself early, walked out the back. Lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in 6 years, that it burned slow in the cold air. Across the street in the shadows near a loading dock, I saw a man watching. Hoodie pulled low, face barely visible. I didn't need to see his eyes to know who it was. Ben. He didn't move, didn't wave. Just stood there, frozen like an old statue no one visits anymore. I took a long drag, flicked the ash, turned away. Because the truth is, some ghosts don't need to be confronted, just need to watch as you walk away with everything they thought they'd buried you beneath. I built Razor Frame with my own hands. But what I really built was a future where nobody could ever tell me again to be grateful I have a job. Now, they don't give me work. They license my legacy. And every time that royalty check hits, it whispers the only name that ever mattered: Merrick.